Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would like to continue on with the wonderful viewer questions that you so very kindly submitted to this channel a few months back. So it's been my great honor and privilege to be able to go through these one at a time. The next of these great questions is from Kieran C. So hello, Kieran C. I hope you are well, my friend. And you ask, if you had the opportunity to make a movie with an unlimited budget and any way you liked, what kind of movie would it be? Genre, style, actors you would cast, time period, and details like that. Oh, thank you very much, Kieran C. That's a very intriguing question. It's especially intriguing to me because I would say that I don't have the artistic viewpoint or approach or temperament. I am not a filmmaker, and so it's very difficult for me to imagine or envision or to inhabit that particular mindset when it comes to thinking about the creative process. So this question is actually quite difficult for me to answer, and so I think my response will be quite unsatisfactory. So I apologize in advance. I mean, I could give you examples of films that I would like to see made, not necessarily by me, but films I'd like to see made by other great worthy filmmaker artists and the sort. But when it comes to something that I personally would make, and of course we understand too that the word make, or the phrase make a movie, has many different interpretive meanings. To make something means be involved in some way or another in the creative process, but as we can imagine, that creative process has many different possibilities and facets. We oftentimes talk about the director, but there's also the role of, say, the producer or the producers. There's also the role of making those decisions which propel the productions forward. And so those sorts of considerations, I know, are quite possible. But if we were to think about the word make in terms of a direct hands-on approach and the direct decision-making and that process by which a film is made, probably generally understood, of course there are always exceptions, but generally understood in a broad scope of the word to mean that job of, say, the director, or the person or the people that are considered to be the biggest primary sources of the creative spirit of a particular work, let's put it that way. But once again, that can be completely different depending on the circumstances, so I understand that. But given that assumption, so what can I say? As I say, I'm not a filmmaker. When I was in college, though, I did, and I've mentioned this before, I did dabble a little bit in making short animation videos. And when I say animation, these were very amateur affairs in terms of having a kind of camcorder at the time and just doing it like one press of the button at a time and then moving a little bit, so it was all set up. And I didn't make anything very elaborate. It was just maybe a light shining on a desk with a piece of paper, draw a little squiggle on the paper and then push the button and then draw another extended squiggle line and press the button or something like that, so it turned into this squiggle line thing or something. Or another thing would be I really like the James Bond movies, and so I was making these car chase animation works. They're very short, but they were using, I think they were like Hot Wheels cars or something, and they would just be driving all around the house or something. And so I just move the car a little bit, press the button, move the car a little bit, press the button, and it would just turn into this thing, and you speed it up and it gives the illusion of movement. And it was really exciting. for me anyway. And there were other projects like that, also completely different from the animation field. I was very much interested in trying to make short documentaries when I was a student. Unfortunately, my plans never came to any kind of concrete fruition. And perhaps maybe not unfortunately, perhaps fortunately, because as I say, my filmmaking and my artistic sensibilities are quite low, next to nil. And so maybe it's for the benefit of all humanity that my films ended up not being made. But because they would have been very terrible, I think. But maybe the premise or the idea that I was really interested in production, and I was really interested in the idea of some kind of producing of a food or a something that is very common, a common thing maybe found in pretty much every household. But how was it made? And so I came up with the idea of just wanting to go to a cheese factory and have a documentary about how cheese was made, and as a type of maybe just trying to get at the heart of the passion that these people have for making cheese. And so there was a period when I was a student that I was really interested in trying to make some kind of documentary about making cheese. And then I thought, well, maybe you can combine that cheese documentary premise with the animation premise, and then maybe the idea could be a meta one. And I thought, oh, maybe it could be possible to have a story about a very small film crew or videography crew that maybe they're student filmmakers or something, and they go to this particular, say, cheese factory place somewhere in the world, and maybe it's an isolated area, who knows, and then they can go and see how the cheese is made, and you can see the story between the filmmakers, and they go to the cheese factory and they meet the people who work at the cheese factory, and they see the setup, and then all of a sudden things start to get animated around the cheese factory. Little bits of cheese or I don't know, milk or curdled milk or whatever starts to move, and maybe it becomes a life of its own, and the animated cheese starts to attack people, and they have to defend themselves against the attack of all the cheese. So I thought, oh, that might be interesting, or maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe not so interesting. Who knows? But in any event, I thought, oh, that would be some kind of project that could occupy, or that could occupy my time, but also maybe something I could focus on. As I say, it ended up coming to nothing because nothing happened, of course. But I think if I could get to try to answer your question, I think I could maybe try to reinvigorate the cheese factory / animated cheese attacks on the film crew idea, and see if it might come to something. And then I don't know who I'd cast in this. No one would probably want to be in the film anyway, but I probably just ask maybe my close circle of friends, perhaps, to see if they'd want to be going to a cheese factory. Or maybe it doesn't have to be a cheese factory. And I'm not much of a drinker these days, but I do like whiskey, and I do like scotch. And so maybe we could go to a distillery, a whiskey distillery, and see how the whiskey is made in a particular distillery. And then maybe suddenly the whiskey starts to have a life of its own and starts to attack people. Or maybe we don't have to have the part about the whiskey attacking people. Maybe we can just have a story about whiskey. That might be interesting. Or maybe has there been a story made about the great whiskey distilleries and the brands and the rise and fall of various whiskey brand names? You have a great story about that. I don't know, maybe you could have the great rival. I don't know if there were any rivalries. I'm not a big historian when it comes to the history of whiskey, but that would be so fascinating, you know. I don't know, Glenfarclas versus Springbank or something like that, or Auchentoshan or something, or go to Islay, and maybe you could have all these great whiskey whiskey debates or something like that. and so Lafroig anyway. So maybe we can maybe it could be a focus on whiskey. Who knows? Or maybe not. Maybe can be a completely different thing. Going back to the animation thing, and then just having a type of animation story or lies being told. So maybe something like that. I don't know. But that's the extent of my. Those were the extent of my unused ideas, as it were, when I was a student, trying to put my hat in when it came to short films or short video making. So I do like the idea. I was a big fan of the concept of that was employed in particular by the Beatles. I was a huge fan of the Beatles back then and still am now, but I really liked the idea of taking seemingly different elements of the different songs and then connecting them together in a way that becomes a super epic. For instance, I've spoken about James Bond films before, and there's a really great song called Live and Let Die, and the Live and Let Die song organization is such where it seems like it's different songs that are connected together into one epic masterpiece. It's not a Beatles song, I know, Paul McCartney, but if we were to go back to maybe to the Beatles example, probably one of the most majestic examples is a song called A Day in the Life, where you have essentially the John Lennon part and then a bit of a Paul McCartney tune that's essentially inserted in a particular part of the song and then going back. So there's this way in which these seemingly disparate elements are connected together to create this multi-leveled masterpiece. So not to say that anything I would make would be a type of masterpiece level, but the concept of connecting seemingly disparate ideas was always something that fascinated me. And I always thought, if there's an idea that occurs here and there's an idea that occurs here around the same time, I always thought that there had to be some kind of meaning behind that. There had to be some kind of meaning behind those ideas occurring at the same time or similar time. And so maybe it was worth trying to connect those and see what it was like to try to put them together in this sandwich way. But so that's why I think I came up with the concept of the cheese factory / animation, animated cheese attack, I think. But oh well, c'est la vie, as it were, c'est la vie. Things turn out differently in life, and so now such film was never made. But as I said, going back to your wonderful question, Kieran C, thank you so much for letting me indulge myself in this sort of trip down memory lane, as it were. And I apologize if my answer to your great question is very unsatisfactory to you. But once again, please accept my apologies. It's a wonderful question, though. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. So until we meet again, thank you so much, and cheers.